Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you. Well, last episode, great episode.
Yeah.
I feel so excited about these. We are releasing them to talk about the 4 trauma responses. I love that society is getting more trauma informed right now. I desperately wish we would have been trauma informed years ago. It would have changed my whole life if I would have known that I was in trauma in the beginning and would have had the tools to get out. And there's so many tools that are practical and work for trauma. I remember actually just like a few years ago, PTSD felt like such a mystery. Like it's
that wasn't a thing that was a conversation.
Well, it wasn't a conversation, but also like how to get out of it wasn't a conversation.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like there were answers. And so there's so much more answers now to be able to work through PTSD and trauma. And so we're really wanting to help people get trauma informed, because whether or not you have PTSD, you likely have trauma. That's what it's like living as a human. Everybody kind of goes through traumatic things. And, or you know somebody who has trauma, or you know somebody who's currently in trauma. And so understanding how our brains and bodies work can just empower you to feel more capable and more resilient, and understand when you're not feeling resilient.
I think my dream, I want to add to this. My dream is that we as a culture, as we become more emotionally healthy, trauma-informed culture, that it actually helps. What are you laughing about? What do you think I'm gonna do? You think I'm gonna go back to your knees now? I
just was it just flashed back. Talking about flashbacks, it just flashed back. It's just like the funniest thing I've ever heard. From the knees down. Thank God. Thank God I like from my knees up so much.
Yeah, it's great. But for
I'm so sorry.
That's fine.
You derailed us.
Apologize to everybody else, not me. I could banter all day instead. But the thing that my hope is that the more that we actually have conversations around emotional health, that it actually creates emotionally resilient people versus emotionally fragile people.
Yes.
I do see there is a pendulum swing with culture that talks about emotions. Mm-hmm. And there's it's created a lot of emotionally fragile people who weaponize emotional health and conversations around trauma to actually stay fragile, small, to form some force or create some form of shield.
Yeah, well, it'll be like, you're traumatizing me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You need to stop your behavior traumatizing me, instead of like, I'm having a trauma reaction. I need to do something.
How do I manage me? How do I become powerful over that? How do I heal that inside of myself?
And that we have the power to heal it. It's
Absolutely.
So empowering.
Yeah. You don't have to live that way forever. And you become a very resilient human being.
Now, actually, before I was trauma informed, I was very shut down. I collapsed under the trauma. I was very emotionally fragile. And I would say the more I've learned about trauma, the more resilient I've become. Would you say that?
Yes, absolutely. I'm watching you stabilize in an entirely different way. And I think that I am in so many different facets
definitely are.
As well.
Yeah.
And here's the deal. If you're really, truly on a really good trajectory with emotional health and digging into the tools and stuff, there's the group of people that won't address their emotions at all, and they look great until the implosion or the explosion happens and life just gets crippled altogether.
Yes.
Or you live an entire life dissociated from relationships. And that was called survival.
Yeah.
And then you have that other side of the pendulum where people get entrenched in emotional health stuff in a way that they empower fragility but what you should end up getting into, like the end result is, in resiliency, you should be able to utilize tools in a way that you become a very regulated human being that has the capacity to manage what's going on. You don't have to be perfect, but wholeness comes to a place where I'm like, I get really good at managing me and finding repair for myself and not putting my emotions and my problems on other people. And then you become this stabilizing factor in the environments that you're inside of, even though you don't have everything completely worked out.
Yeah. I was thinking, if I was to sum up what I think creates resiliency. Now, I just was thinking about it while you're talking there, so it's not super deep, but I would think through the 4 things that I've learned to become resilient is learn how to grieve so that I can accept. Those 2 have to be tied, not just grieve for the sake of grief, but like getting to acceptance. Like this happened, and that is okay. And it's sad. It's sad that it happened and it has a lot of impact on me, but it happened.
Yeah.
So grief and acceptance, and then the ability to connect to safety, to find new ways to feel safe
within ourselves.
Whatever we went through that was so traumatic. Sometimes it's learning to feel safe sitting in a chair. Sometimes it's learning to feel safe communicating your needs. Like everything, there's so many ways we can learn to feel safe. I can feel safe going out in nature and just seeing how big and vast nature is. There's a lot of ways that we can actually show our bodies that we're safe. That's what I had to learn because my body was just like, I'm not safe anywhere. So I had to learn how to teach it that it was safe. And you can do that. And part of safety is learning how to feel joy and pleasure in your body. And then, let's see, those are 3. There's one more. Grief, acceptance, safety. It's gone.
4th one. It'll come back. It always does.
Yeah, but so you can create resiliency through learning how to accept what happened, grieve all that it cost you, and then figure out how to reconnect to safety. Oh, boundaries was going to be my 4th one.
Oh, good one.
Yeah, you have to be able to learn healthy boundaries in order to create that safety. I was thinking about it because as kids, when we have big emotions, what we need, I think about a kid throwing a temper tantrum, and the kid being like, "Wah!" Like a kid needs to be able to feel their feelings. And they need to be able to accept what happens. But they also need boundaries. They need somebody to be like, you can't hit everybody. You can't hit your head against the wall. You can hit this pillow, but you can't hit us. Like the boundaries actually help kids feel like their emotions are contained. Like they're not too big for everyone.
Yeah.
And so we need emotional boundaries within ourselves, and then also to create boundaries in our own lives as adults that helps create that safety for us. So that's what I would say creates emotional resiliency. We're not going to even go into that, but that's a freebie for you guys listening.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
What we are going to dive into is the other two 4F responses that we didn't tackle in the last episode. The last episode, we tackled fight.
Yep.
And freeze.
Yes. So for just a recap, the 4Fs are 4 Fs, literally fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Yeah.
And they're trauma reactions that our body has without us consciously choosing. Our body goes into them and activates in order to protect us so we don't get hurt. And it does that unconsciously. And so we have to learn to consciously start to recognize it and then be able to get the safety and the self-soothing and the comfort and the boundaries that we need to be able to be okay again.
Yeah.
And so we are talking today about flight and fawn. Should we start with which one?
Let's start with flight.
Okay.
And end on fawn.
Okay.
I like fawn.
You're especially fond of fawn.
I'm especially fond of fawn.
Okay, so flight is it's another one where we mobilize our energy fast. So it's another one that it's called you're a mover. You're activating by moving. So maybe you feel, I think about one of my friends when he gets stressed, his immediate thing is activation. What do I need to do?
Yeah.
What do I do from here? How do I fix this?
Doers.
What's the fastest thing to fix? I need to get this thing done. And a lot of times flight people will do before they've even thought through the best course of action. So I think about like a house project and something goes wrong, and flight, there's a couple ways flight could show up. So like, let's say that you installed the wrong sink, okay? And you just realize it. You could go into flight. One way could be like, I'm not going to work on the bathroom today. I'm just going to go in the other room. That'd be one way to flight. It's like fleeing fast, getting away from the source of pain. The other thing you could do is like, I'm going to fix this really fast, but like maybe I'm not going to think through the best way to do it.
So a hypervigilant approach to just like manically trying to resolve it.
I'm just going to quickly try to
That's
get
something
rid
I
of this.
usually would do.
Yeah.
I wasn't the runaway. I was the mobilize into, I'm just going to keep pushing through this. There's got to be a solution. There's got to be a solution.
But you wouldn't like calm down
No.
long enough to actually get your brain
Made
online.
everything worse all the time too. It was just like disaster. And then the disaster would create another disaster to another disaster.
Uh-huh.
And I keep escalating until I'm like,
Yes, that's exactly what flight like keeps you in the state of triggeredness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. And then being around you when you were in that, it was just so much anxiety, building. And it was an experience.
Oh, that was a nice way to say that was totally shitty and you couldn't stand being around me. Thanks. Way to filter yourself. It's true. That is a tormenting space. And it's a tormenting space that I would get into
that you were
inside
in
of
your
that.
own self.
And I felt very trapped in it. And I felt like a pinball that was pinging around in a pinball machine, being like boom, 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 bing, 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 hoping that at some point I'm going to end up out of the machine.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great
You'd be
analogy.
like, don't you think it might be a good idea to just take a pause and a break and come back to this later? I'll be like, no, leave me alone. I have to get this done.
I'm actually feeling so validated right now because this is something that has happened so many times in our marriage.
Guilty.
It's so true. Yeah. And you'll be like, no, that's stupid. I just got to sort through this. And I'm like, but maybe it'd take less time if we just calm down for a minute.
But now I have your voice a little bit on repeat in my head. And as I've learned to calm down and become aware of my triggers and when they're happening, I'm like, what would Abby be saying over my shoulder right now? She'd be saying, pause, walk away from this and come back later. And then I do that, get myself regulated, and I come back to the projects with so much more clarity.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, I didn't destroy more things by trying to continue the project.
It's so true. Yeah. Fresh eyes is really helpful sometimes.
Yeah. So thanks for that.
You're welcome. I feel validated and you feel validated.
Who says it's wrong to nag?
You're getting me good today. Okay. I was thinking about one of the ways that I went into flight. So when I got PTSD, I started working 2 jobs.
Yeah, you did.
Because
I was very aware of that.
I wanted to be busy all the time.
Yeah.
I wanted something to do all the time. I wanted 30 things on my plate. I wanted to go from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. I did not want to slow down. In fact, I couldn't slow down. I felt like on a treadmill that was going really, really, really fast, and it was simultaneously tiring and exhilarating and was helping me avoid the entire room behind me that was messy, that needed to be cleaned. You know, I was like, I'm not focusing on any of that because I got to run so fast on this treadmill. And I was busy. And I think Workaholics is a great example of
that's
flight.
a really good example.
Like we're avoiding our own emotions. We're avoiding being with ourselves. We're avoiding being connected by doing.
What was that like for you? I'm just curious.
Well, I will say this. This is something I want to talk about trauma responses anyway. I'm aware that's not your highest level of living. Like I knew this is not my highest level of living, but I also knew I'm going through PTSD. And I thought, this is actually a decent way to cope with all the pain. I was like, I would rather be really busy than like go destroy something.
I mean, that's true.
Like I would rather be really busy than fight with you all day.
Yeah.
I would rather be really busy.
I mean, it was relieving for me.
Yeah.
Go work another job.
And I was like, I'd rather be really busy than sink into depression on the couch. I'd rather be really busy than go get addicted to drugs. Like it was like, I need an escape from my pain. I need help to cope. So I looked at it and I thought, I had a lot of compassion for, wow, I'm in a lot of pain. So my system is trying to provide a way out.
Yeah.
And I just had a lot of compassion. Like, I'm so sorry you're in so much pain that you want to be in this much flight. Like I would consistently have that compassion. I'm so sorry you're in so much pain that you need to be this busy in order to avoid yourself.
That's good.
I'm so sorry you're in this much pain that you need so much to be like, and I was like consumed with the worlds that I was doing so that I didn't have to be consumed with my inner world. You know, I was consumed with other people's drama. I was consumed with the other the businesses I was involved in. I was like fully consumed. And, you know, there was part of it that I felt guilty. Like I felt guilty for you. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm very consumed over here.
And to be fair,
I was.
And I was very happy you were overly consumed over somewhere else and not with me.
Well, I think you simultaneously missed me.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
We're happy that that's my outlet.
It was the mix of like, you get both sides.
Yeah. Part of you felt like, oh, I'm sad that you're gone all the time. And then part of you was like, thank God that's how you're dealing with it.
Not being aimed at me.
I wasn't blaming you for my emotions, and I wasn't having huge meltdowns. And if I was having huge meltdowns, it was about how busy I was or how intense things were.
Yeah.
And that felt like ways for me to let off steam without it hurting something.
Yeah, it could have been much worse off. Yeah.
Now, I also knew that wasn't a long-term solution.
No.
I was like, I will kill myself if I stay at this pace. And eventually, so that disconnection was just enough for me to be healing. And I was still seeing trauma counselors, and I was still doing a lot of work inside my relationships. I was growing, so I wasn't avoiding myself entirely. So I knew this is good for a season because it's a support for me, but it will start to kill me and it'll cripple me and destroy me. Yeah.
And a lot of people get stuck in it unconsciously. They don't know that that's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a lifestyle, cultural decision that they end up living out of. And it does. It ends up imploding, causing an implosion.
Flight is like your energy is out here, consumed with outside of you, instead of in here connected to yourself. So I also think about flight, like if somebody's really stressed and they start stress cleaning, I wish so bad that this was my 4F response.
Let me tell you, that is one of my 4F responses.
I know, and I love it. It's so great for our lives.
To me, I'm like, when I'm stressed and I'm going into that response, being able to get my environment all settled in and clean and do all that, some semblance of control, not real control.
And it's some semblance of activation. There's something I can do to make myself feel better. That's what flight is saying.
Yep.
The way I can get back to safety is through doing something.
Yeah. What's cool is that I had plenty of space to keep re-cleaning because you'd come in the house.
Make a tornado and then leave.
I can go
You're
back
welcome.
to it. Oh,
I just wanted you to have something to do all the time.
Yeah. But yeah, I know that all too well. That was a very easily consuming thing. And I would also do that. So in social settings, I would hit flight and I'd be like, what can I take care of for you? And I'd be the guest that was doing all these things because I'm actually having social anxiety, and I'd kick into flight, and I didn't know that was flight. I was like, I'm being a helpful person. No, you're running, Justin.
No, it's really good. And the thing that's interesting is, like, now looking back, I can think about you at parties and I can realize, you felt disconnected from yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's a protector, but it's a protector that disconnects us from ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple other examples of flight, which would be online shopping.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a great one. Like, I just need to go shop. I have a lot of friends who do that. They feel stressed about life and they're like, I just bought a new purse, and that's like a way, like, it's how do I mobilize to do an action to help me feel better about my life or help me avoid the pain that I'm in.
I wonder if that's me with my action figures.
I mean, there might be a little bit sometimes.
Could be. I'm going to get a hit of dopamine when they arrive.
You get a good hit of dopamine when you find them online, when you hear that they're coming into town.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think that there's like, so working really hard, working out can be a form of flight.
Yeah.
You're literally running away. You're literally running away from your problems. The other things that happen with flight is like you go into avoidance. So in a conflict, a flight person might just bounce out, or they might find a quick way to bounce out, or they might just.
Or they go into doom scrolling on their phone.
Yeah. Because they want to check out.
I'm gone. I'm gone from this moment. I'm just going to get on my phone.
Do you want to describe what it's like when I'm sick and having a body trigger, what it's like being around me? Because this is when I go into flight.
Excuse me. Yeah, when you have a body trigger, I'll watch you disappear. Like you're just all of a sudden, you're lost, sucked into doom scrolling, as I say, on your phone, or maybe playing a game or whatever like that. And I can be like, Abby, hey, hello. And you're just gone. And you could be gone for the next like 2 hours. Maybe you'll have little interactions with me, but the presence of you has left the building.
Yeah. Like my life energy is out of my body.
Yeah.
It's not present with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something. And so I often will do that when I am really sick. I'm conscious it's not healthy. And it's, again, these are subconscious reactions. Now you can become more aware of them so that then you can choose what to do with them.
Because, sorry, my brain was still in the thought of that. Like, that was like something that early on in marriage, like I'd be like, you're always checking out. And you're like, I'm not checking out. And I didn't have any other words for like, you've exited the building and you were trying to deal with what was going on in your being.
Yeah. So when we dissociate or compartmentalize or whatever you want to say, I just imagine it like my warmth and my ability to connect, it's gone. It's either sucked internally or it's like I've disconnected from myself. It's actually pretty painful to be around people who are really disconnected. That's why we call this the connected life. It feels really good being around people who are present. It feels really good being around people because then when they talk to you, you can feel them when in the conversation and you can feel their presence with you. And people who are people with extreme ADHD are in flight a lot. They're just ping-ponging around. And ADHD can be a trauma response. Like when my trauma is worse, my ADHD is way worse, which is like I'm doing all these things that are not here in the present because I'm trying to avoid the present at all costs.
Yeah.
Oh, so what I'm saying with conflict is they often try to bounce out. Yeah. They try to end it. They try to run away. They are like, oh, I got to go. Like they can be very avoidant of conflict.
And kick the can down the road and be like, yeah, I totally want to address that. Let's get back to that. Let's get back to that. Let's get back to that. You're like, why is it that I'm having such a hard time getting this person?
Things get hard and they're like, let's go surfing. Let's go play checkers. Like they're immediately like, let's not
checkers,
feel anything.
How about badminton?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have anything else like that?
Well, we just say like, it's like a quick, like, how do we get out of the pain fast?
Totally. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I avoid pain with fun. I avoid pain with activities. I avoid pain by avoiding being present with myself. That's what flight is.
Totally.
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty good rundown. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, it's another, again, we all exhibit expressions of all the 4F responses.
Yes.
And that's definitely one that was very easy for me to find myself inside of in life.
Well, I would say at the job site, your dad probably goes into fight or flight. It's either like get things done, like a chicken with its head cut off. We just need to go, 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 go. Or like aggressive. We need to make this happen. But he's mobilized either way. So he does get a lot done.
You turn that into my dad.
What?
Well, you turn that into a conversation about my dad.
Well, I was thinking about you and your dad. I'm sorry, you and your dad on job sites. Well, I was thinking about how you learned that on job sites.
Totally.
And that's also how he ran the job sites that you guys were on together.
Yeah.
So you also learned that behavior on job sites, which was flight or fight.
I'd become a high-level doer.
But you'd get a lot done. And so that's, I always like to see the benefits of my trauma responses. I like to see that they both have gifts in them and they're destructive.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to look at it because it actually holds compassion. It keeps us in a place of compassion and not just becoming resentful towards ourselves and be like, yeah, but there's still beautiful things that it can hold for me. Yeah,
like the beautiful thing for you and your dad is you guys were able to get so much done.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were high producers in the work that we did.
Yeah. And that's a cool skill.
Yeah. Which then brings me to fawn.
Ooh.
You know, you were talking about the good parts of stuff. And I'm like, fawn's amazing. That's where my charisma would kick in. And I would just make people my friends. And I would just start fawning and get people all happy. There's an expression of fawn. There's different expressions of fawn. Sometimes one of the expressions of fawn is deeply apologetic.
Overly apologizing.
Overly, like you're apologizing for your existence.
I'm so sorry that I said I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that I walked in your house. I'm so sorry that I was in your way, you know.
I'm sorry if I'm bothering you by asking you a question. And they're like, what? I'm like, I'm the teacher. You're supposed to ask questions, you know. And that's not maybe the funnest expressions of fawn for people to be on the other side of. But then there's the other side of that where fawn is just like, hey, I'm going to be the life of the party right now, and I'm going to make jokes, and I'm going to keep you happy. And right now, this is an intense situation, and you're really pissed off, so I'm going to make you laugh.
Yes. So fawn is, can I just give an overall summary and then you
go
can
ahead.
give examples? Fawn would be almost like a golden retriever sometimes, or like some kind of thing that is happy a lot. And the goal is to diffuse situations through social interaction. So typically, like what you're saying, jokes, being funny, asking questions, diverting attention, being playful, being kind. There's a million, being loving, being affectionate, verbally praising. There's a million ways, but it's like, I want people to feel good. That's like they take their life energy, and instead of it being aware of their experience, they send their life energy to all the people around them. How do I make you happy so that everything else will feel good?
Yeah. Because ultimately, if I can get you to get out of your mood through the way that I'm fawning and relating with you, then I can avoid the pain that might come through the interaction or the feeling of rejection that I might feel inside of the circumstance.
Yeah.
The problem is that in fawn, you made the point there of saying like, hey, you're not even aware of what's really going on inside of you. And oftentimes you end up becoming a needless human being where it's like, I don't have needs. I'm all good. Everything's good on my side. I don't address anything. I'm just going to take care of you. Can we take care of you right now? And it honestly ends up manifesting in a lot of codependent ways.
I was literally just going to say fawning is so codependent.
Yeah.
Everything is, I need to make sure you're okay so that I can feel okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking about in your childhood that it did actually work, because sometimes when you made people laugh, you got in less trouble.
Yeah.
So you actually, your brain
saw it work. I did a lot of
work.
playing around, a lot of goofing around. And I was like, this is going to save me. I think that was definitely in aspects of my environment, I could alleviate a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fawning was something that I liked about myself for years and didn't realize was a trauma response. I just thought like, I'm such a like nice, giving, loving person. And I still think that there is a part of me that's that. I don't think it's all or nothing. But I've recognized now when I'm overly praising something or overly like, here would be a great way that I've learned that I used to fawn. Maybe I'd go into someone's house. Now, I actually genuinely always look at everything I love in something. That's my natural personality.
You do. Yeah.
That's just me.
That's true.
Like, I'm often going to think that.
Yeah.
But I can make it over the top. And that is when I'm in fawn. And so what I never realized is I'm having social anxiety right now. Something about this situation, I feel threatened. I don't know what to do.
So you'd take a truth that you felt and then you'd throw it on a megaphone and shout it like nobody's business to make up for all of that.
Yeah.
You know, as you're talking about that, I'm sorry.
No, please jump in.
Yeah. It made me think of one of the expressions of fawning for people to relate to is becoming a chameleon.
Yes. 100%.
So, and I think people can relate to that. Like, oh yeah, I'm like a chameleon. I will change my colors for each and every circumstance. That was something that I did often. And it wasn't that I was being fake. I would just adapt even internally and ignore what I really wanted, needed, felt, what I believed to be true about stuff. And I would just adopt whatever someone's opinion was, feelings were. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm trying to fool you by doing this.
No.
I would even buy into, sure, yeah, I love that. I love that too. And I would even tell myself that I love that or I was interested in that. And I didn't realize like, I'm feeling actually tortured by coming into agreement with whatever value system or thing that they're expressing. It's just not me. And it took me a while. It was especially my early 20s. I was very chameleon-like. And I was like, but this isn't authentically what I feel.
Oh, yeah. Fawning means like often you're in fawn if you're a yes person. So if people are like, I want to go hot tubbing and maybe you hate hot tubs. That's a funny scenario, but I actually don't like hot tubs. They kind of sick me out. Well, I'm allergic to them. I wonder if I'd like them if I wasn't. I might like them, but also they kind of sick me out.
Depends on what you're doing them.
Okay, but let's say that everybody's like, let's go hot tubbing, you know? So fawning would be like, yeah. Oh, here's a great example. I was in I was in Maui for my friend's proposal, and they all wanted to go to the pool. And I was like, I'm allergic to chlorine. So fawning Abby in the past would have been like, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to cause anything. I'll just go sit with them by the pool and hang out, and that'll be fine. And if it's really hot, even though if I'm the one person who can't get wet and I'm really hot, that's fine. I'll just suffer in the heat. And like, this is me being a good friend. And this is what being a good friend is. There's lots of rules that I had for myself. And this is what love looks like. And I'm so focused on loving other people, not aware of my own needs or valuing my own part of the experience. So this time when that happened, instead of fawning, I just had a voice. I was like, hey, I'd really like it if we go to the ocean instead of the pool because I can be in the ocean. And then we did. And then there were times that other people went to the pool and I could choose if I wanted to go to the pool or not. But it was the ability to speak up and have a voice where years ago I would have never done that. And I would have, not only would I have not spoken up, I probably would have been like, the pool's a great idea. What a
Totally.
good idea. When inside I was like, we're in Maui. We can go to a pool anywhere. You can't go to the ocean. Like, let's go to the place that we can only go while we're here.
Yeah.
But I used to be, and it wasn't that I was lying, because it wasn't that I was lying. I just could find the positive of any situation and put all of my energy towards that and just ignore the part of me that, because I think we're made up of parts. So we often have multiple things happening within us at once. Most situations are like that, you know? So I've just learned to notice both parts more.
I like that you're pointing out that there's multiple parts.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very easy, as a side note, to believe like, oh, this person's lying. They said this thing and then they're saying this thing over here. I'm like, yeah, but there can be two truths that are 2, 3, 4. There can be multiple expressions of truth to that person coexisting.
That are conflicting within them.
That a whole piece of them is like, no, I really do feel this. And a whole other side is like, no, not at all. I hate that. And there's a battle.
Yeah. Yeah. I have found that the more I can communicate using parts language, like a part of me really wants to go to the pool with you guys because that sounds fun and I know you're excited about it. And a part of me really wants to go to the beach because we never get to be at the beach and I love the ocean. And I think that could be really fun too. Just being able to communicate like that. I was working with a couple in a marriage session the other day. I don't know why I have so much allergies. They're killing me.
Yeah.
So I was working with a couple and the wife gave an answer and I asked the husband, like, how do you feel about the answer? She was like, I'm willing to compromise on this because I love you and I want to meet you. And he was like, I don't really believe her that that's fully true. And I was like, well, is there a part of you that also doesn't want to compromise? And she was like, yes, there's a part of me that wants to compromise because I love him. And there's a part of me that really wants this still. And when she was able to verbalize that, I was like, does that feel true to you? And he was like, yes, that feels true to me. And so just being able to verbalize that there's two parts enabled it so that they could do the compromise, but he knew what was going on inside of her. But so with Fawn, knowing that there's parts of you is one of the best things for me to be able to recognize. A part of me does think that going to Taco Bell sounds really fun and that could be a great experience. And a part of me would prefer McDonald's.
I think something as you're talking about that, it made me think of an aspect of fawning that's really detrimental to relationships. And it's the idea that I can't trust you.
Yes.
Right. So
good, Justin.
When we're acting out of fawn and we're not giving the full truth of the reality of what's going on inside of us, I know that like there's individuals that were popping into my mind as you were saying it, who are charismatic fawners.
Yep.
And one of them happened to flash in my mind. It wasn't a harsh judgment or anything. I was just like, oh, I don't trust you. Oh yeah, I don't trust you because you don't actually lay the full reality of what's going on inside of you out on the table.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm imagining some people like who feel like, no, but fawning's great. I think part of why I'm saying this is like your adaptive behavior in order to survive through fawning may feel widely acceptable or seemingly acceptable, but you're actually chiseling away at trust inside of relationships, especially intimate relationships. And what you're doing when you're operating in fawn, again, It's a trauma
You're
response.
not having full honesty.
Yeah. And you're not having real connection. So it's a false sense of intimacy that gets cultivated inside of fawn responses, rather than like, oh, here's the full parts of me. And what ends up happening is you don't ever feel fully accepted. So there's this essence in some ways where you feel like a fraud, like someone who is living out of the fawn response as one of their key ways of operating. You end up having this sense of fraudulent, what is it? I'm trying to think of the word. Yeah, this fraudulent feeling. Anyways, like, oh, if they really knew me, they wouldn't love me. And that's usually when someone says, if people really knew me, they wouldn't like me and stuff like that. That's usually because there's a lot of aspects of fawning
where they're covering up true parts of them.
True parts of themselves. It's, it can go deeper into like, oh, I'm actually lying about all these different things in my life. But usually it's just the surface level. Like, I'm never really authentically bringing myself to the table. Oh, it's because I'm in a fawn response. Probably I should probably start bringing some more vulnerable conversations, even about how I want to come across agreeable so that I don't get rejected.
Yeah, I was thinking about this person that I know who is in fawn a lot, and they'll be like, Abby, oh my gosh, you are so awesome. You're like the most awesome woman of God I've ever met. How is it going being a boss babe? And it's like so intense and extreme, but there's never we never have a real exchange about anything that is real going on inside of me or them. And it ends up feeling like almost sometimes it can feel like sucking up. And people do love this. Like, people do love being loved. People are starving for attention, and people love having the focus be on them. So it does feel good on one hand. It also can feel empty or fake on the other hand. And I don't judge it as fake because I've been the fawner and it wasn't fake for me. It just wasn't a full truth.
Right.
I wasn't being fake when I was like, I love all these things about you. I just wasn't being truthful about like, I'm also hiding me because I think if you get to know me, that you won't love it. Or I'm hiding me because I think I'm a burden and I don't want to be a burden. I spent so much of my energy making everything about everyone else around me. And so one of the ways I fawned would be asking other people questions. I would control the conversation. I still do this. I don't know why I'm talking about it in past tense. But I do it less than I used to. I'd control the conversation to make it about them so that I could hide because I felt shy and had social anxiety. Really, it was just because I had social anxiety. Most of my behavior, looking back, so now that I've started to recognize how often I've gone into fawn, I started having such deep compassion because I was like, oh my gosh, you're feeling threatened right now. Wow, you're feeling threatened right now. Wow, you're feeling threatened right now. Wow, you feel unsafe all the time. Wow, you have so many habits of needing to protect yourself by making other people happy. And if you think about my childhood, my mom was so depressed. And so there was this, and she wanted to kill herself, and I was aware of that. And so there was such a deep need in me, like I need people to be happy in order so that my life doesn't break. Like, my mom will die if she's not happy. So I have to make her happy. So I got in such a habit of needing to make people happy in order to feel okay. And fawners often get really uncomfortable in awkward situations. Like, if there's a social dynamic that is awkward, they're the first person to crack a joke. And so now that I recognize fawn, I also appreciate it. Like, there's people who go into fawn in situations where they crack a joke, it lightens the mood. And I just think, thank God for that person doing that right now.
I mean, we have a mutual friend who she is fantastic at those fawn responses and like throwing jokes in at really hard times and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm so thankful you're in my life.
Totally. Yeah.
And I'm totally okay with you having that as a response. It is delightful.
And so it does, yes, it contributes and there's beauty in it, but you have to check yourself. And so I spent a couple years where I kind of stopped complimenting people.
Yeah.
And I kind of stopped, I asked way less questions. I stopped complimenting and asking questions as much. I'm like, the truth is I always am going to say what I love about things and I'm always going to be curious. So, but for me, it was like from a 10 to maybe like a 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And I also stopped feeling like I needed to fix environments. So now there's like lots of times there'll be an awkward situation and I'll just let it be awkward.
Yeah. Sit with it.
Because I've now learned that I can be in the discomfort of. Now I can't always do that, but it is something that's valuable. One way that you did fawn a lot in our marriage is you would apologize without even knowing what you were apologizing for. So you'd be like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for whatever I did. You're right. I did so many bad things in that fight. I'm so sorry. Because you wanted us to be reconnected again.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were just happy to get over it. You know what? Do you remember doing
What?
that?
Huh?
You don't remember that?
Huh? Yes, I did that.
Yes. And I've done that too before where you're just like, I want to get out of the pain. So let's get to reconnection really fast. I'll just apologize.
It felt, there's two parts, right? So we're talking about the two parts, that two truths can coexist or there can be whatever. So there would be the thing that I'm like, I'm actually purposely doing something and apologizing when I didn't get apologies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fighting everything in me to go hand out an apology.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I'm wanting to just apologize and get past it.
Mm-hmm.
So both of those two realities coexisted. But yeah, I was like, all right, I'll just take the bullet on this. And I don't want to make it worse. So I'm not actually going to hold you accountable to the experience that I'm having.
I'm not going to
and
share
stuff like
my
that
feelings.
and share my feelings
Mm-hmm.
on it. And so, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that we both have fawned.
Yeah. I was going to add that when it comes to fawning, a lot of times, even when the compliments or the engagement, you were like using that one person, as an example. And I was like, a lot of times it's not that they're fake. One of the things is that they're not present.
Yes. 100%.
Part of the fawn experience is that I am dissociating out of myself
mm-hmm.
into, again, a survival.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, again, for all the 4F responses, all of a sudden.
All of them are trying to get away from ourselves.
Away from ourselves, away from the intolerable feelings
mm-hmm.
that we're having inside or the circumstances.
Yep.
And then, so it's like, I don't know that this person's being fake. It's just that they're not there. They're not there inside of that. And that's something I think that happened to you, is that you were out of your body
Yep.
at the point. And I was like, and I had people tell me at times like, oh, she feels so fake.
Oh, I know. Tons of people say that, but also because I am genuinely very positive.
Yes. And you are. And I knew, especially back then, I was like, I know she's actually really positive. She's always telling me about the good things she feels about people
mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. That is a real thing inside of her.
But I'm disconnected from my body.
And I could tell, I'm like, but she's disconnected from herself. And so it's coming across as fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I do now with compliments to try to make it sound less fake, well, not to try to make it sound less fake, but something that I think helps them land.
To land with more, seem genuine or be experienced.
To help people be able to receive them.
Yeah,
is to have them be specific.
Yeah.
So instead of being like, you're so amazing, being like, hey, I really have enjoyed the banter that you've done on this podcast because it's made me laugh a lot. And I also have enjoyed the ownership you've taken for some of the ways that you've gone into 4F responses. I appreciate that about this. Instead of being like, you're the best podcaster. You know what I mean?
I am. You can tell me that.
Did you give me this, the world's best boss? Am I your boss? Did you give me this?
You're not my boss. I took the believe.
No, but you gave me this. So is that because I'm your boss?
Yes, sure.
And I'm the best?
You're the boss. You're the boss. Believe it.
Believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I wanted to add, I did bring believe here.
Uh-huh.
For those who have watched Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso fawns.
He is the king of fawning.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. He's like always making a joke, always being playful.
He's got some major flight
mm-hmm.
and some major fawn.
Yeah. Roy Kent is a good fight personality.
It would have been great to just go through Ted Lasso and all the personality
and
types there in the 4F response.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the things that you see in Ted Lasso, and I think that's a good point, is that you see these people living out of these adaptive behaviors
mm-hmm.
their 4F trauma responses to life. And then you get to see the ooey gooey nuggety insides of the realities of their humanity. And that's what made it such a popular show for all the people that watched it. They're like, I love this so much, is because you're going, oh, I can see myself in you. I can see all the ways that I'm trying to adapt and survive life through these behaviors, these coping mechanisms.
Totally.
And I can see you show that I'm actually a lovable person. Like you can relate. I can relate to you because I get it. I'm authentically, there's a real person in here with pain that really matters. It's not just a villain inside of me. And that's something that people, I think, why they were so connected into Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
And enamored by it.
It's very true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that fawn is also, like, I wanted to talk about the apologizing all the time. Like, you're apologizing almost for breathing. You're apologizing anytime there's a miscommunication. You're apologizing for, like, let's say I'm like, oh, I forgot to tell you, can you take your shoes off in our house? And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, well, why would you be sorry? I didn't tell you. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's that our first thing is, I need to fall on the sword to make sure that things feel good again. Yeah.
I had one in our life consulting masterclass. I have one of the most precious students who emailed me and said, along the lines, they were having kind of like a meltdown in one of the phone calls, quietly in their own space, like panicking, having some trauma come up inside of their own soul. And they emailed to apologize for the fact that they had a meltdown quietly that was on
their own Zoom,
one of their own Zoom, on one of the Zoom pages that maybe, but they were like,
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I took attention away from anyone. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. And two things happened. One, my heart just broke for this person. It broke because I was like, oh, you're so precious. And there was so much pain in your history that
you got so blamed.
You got, and you got so in trouble and stuff like that. That this is where we're at, that you're apologizing for almost your existence within this situation, which I identified with
totally
deeply. I'm like, oh, I know what that is to do that. I've done that. I had years of that. And, you know, I sent a message back to them. I said, there's no need to ever apologize for having pain. Da, 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 da. And then they wrote back and they're like, thank you for your response. I'm so sorry that that I could be a problematic student. And I'm like,
no, you're not a problematic student.
I literally was like, you're not allowed to apologize to me ever again unless you
stop it.
Basically,
unless I'm so sorry that I sent another email. No, I'm just kidding.
But because I was like, no, you're precious. You're
precious.
You're not bad. There's not something wrong with you having needs and stuff like that. And so I have so much compassion on people, especially when they express themselves in that way through fawn responses, because it really says a lot about the condition of their experience, that there's something about them that wasn't okay to be and exist.
Yeah. And you know what I love is, I think when I started recognizing fawn, I realized all those people that look charismatic and charming, they actually have pain like me. Yeah. Because it started to be
Robin Williams is a great example. Yeah. He just popped into my head.
Had so much.
The end of his life was such a mess.
Fawn, wild,
yes,
like good
everyone
energy.
Loved him. And they were like, oh, I felt like the best version of myself could be around him.
But there was a part of him on the inside because all of his life energy was focused out there, not feeling and dealing with his own pain. Yeah. And so I think it humanizes. So now when I look at people, I'm never judging them if I notice a 4F. I'm like, oh, they're in fight. Oh, they're in freeze. Oh, they're in fawn. Oh, they're in flight. What I'm thinking is, oh, they must feel really scared. Yeah. They're unconsciously scared. Yeah. And they are trying to do something to feel safe again. Yeah. They're trying to find a way to get out of the threat into safety. And so instantly I feel like I'm the same as them. I have a million ways that I do it. It also radically impacted me when I noticed how much I fawned, because I realized some of that wasn't my personality. Like, that was partially a coping mechanism. It gave me such deep compassion for how scared I was as a little kid that I needed to get so external in taking care of everyone else's needs. Yeah. I was like, oh, that actually, that really hit me hard about myself. And so when I notice somebody fawning, I'm not like, oh my gosh, that's so fake. Look at them fawning. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love fawners. They're fun. They're delightful. They add to every environment. Oh, they're fawning. Oh, there must be a little bit of social anxiety they have. Oh, that must be a thing. Now, also you can be funny and fun and not be doing it from threat. So
Right.
I want to make sure to distinguish that. But
yeah, there's tons of charismatic expressions of just being playful and stuff like that.
Yes.
And it has nothing to do.
yeah, like
with it.
you weren't fawning today when you were making jokes.
No,
Right.
not at all.
Yeah, you were just being you.
You asked like,
Right?
are you?
Well, I just was like, I better make sure. I better
No,
double check.
not at all. I was just being playful.
Yeah.
It was a great way to start things
That's
off.
what I'm saying.
I
So
love
it's not-
banter.
We don't judge people for it, but there's definitely times you're going to notice you're in a dinner party and somebody does something awkward and then somebody slices through with a joke and you're like,
ha 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 ha.
and you're like, oh, they just fawned.
yeah.
So this is just the reminder to not judge yourself.
Yeah.
The other reminder that I wanted to say before we end this is I was thinking this would be good for parents with their kids is to teach them the 4 F's. And sometimes you can make like animals for them, like a turtle is a great one for freeze. A bear is a great one for fight, like rawr. Golden retriever is good for fawn. A bird is good for flight. It just bounces all around, flies all around. But freeze feels like as we land, helping your kids know what to do when they get into freeze is so important. I can think of so many times as a kid, like there was peer pressure and I just went into freeze. And I didn't know that could happen to my body. I didn't know my body could shut down. I didn't know my brain could turn off. And what I needed was a game plan before I got in that moment.
Yeah.
I needed somebody to explain what that feeling felt like and then help me to start noticing it. And so parents, you can start doing this. You can be like, oh, it looks like you might have just gone into freeze. What does that feel like inside of you? And as you do it, talk through like, hey, if you go into freeze, if you get into a situation that feels threatening or scary, or you don't know what to do, or it feels alarming or whatever, and you lock up, here is what to do. And like for me, one of my things would be like, get to the bathroom, like take a bathroom break. Because sometimes if you just like, that's been one of my go-tos. Like sometimes I remember being in a party talking at a party and somebody is talking so intense at me for so long about really negative things. And I start to feel panicky on the inside.
Do you just shout, I have to poop?
That's a good way to do it. Yeah, no, I was more thinking like I often am like, I'm so sorry, I have to go to the bathroom. And it's just that I have something that I know I can do to get away and try to get myself online. And then I can, in the bathroom, I can do, I can rub my hands under cold water. I can splash my face. I can do some jumping jacks.
You can start breathing, taking some deep breaths.
Deep breaths. I can call somebody. That's
Mhm.
often what I do when I'm in freeze, or I can text somebody. But
I take my shirt off in the mirror and I flex.
that's not what you do.
No, I don't.
But and I'm not going to brainstorm all of these right now on the podcast, but it'd be helpful for you to talk through it so that your kids, so many times that I or clients I worked with went along with things we didn't want to do is because we went into freeze when we were asked. And so we just did the thing. I was listening to a story about this girl on her first date, and this guy brought her home to his basement. And I was like,
Sounds like he's about to butcher her.
it did sound like that. But that reminded me, like sometimes people would tell me they wanted to do things and I'd be like, I actually don't want to do that. But I'd be so locked in freeze, I couldn't even say anything. And so if I know that I have a plan, if I go into freeze, I can run to the bathroom. I can call my mom. I can run to the bathroom. I can call a best friend. And I did that all the time. I'd be like, Pizzi, I don't know what to do. Help me. I remember one time my friend wanted to sneak out and I just didn't want to sneak out. And so I like ran out into the other room, talked to my mom about it, and then came back in. And then was like, oh, okay. I don't think I want to do that. But I just had a plan for if I got into freeze. Also in marriage, it's good to have a plan if you go into freeze. Today you were going into freeze and in talk we were having. And so you just narrated it.
Yeah.
And it worked really well.
Yeah. And I removed myself a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this has been a good conversation. I hope it's been helpful to all of you out there in YouTube land. And
are you glad that we did 2 episodes on this?
Yeah, I am. I had fun. I was slap happy internally on this conversation. I honestly was just trying to keep myself
from making jokes the entire time.
I was like, I'm giving myself some leash here. but not full reign, because I'm like in a happy mood and just wanting to play around. But I think it's a really good conversation. I think, again, I said this in the last episode, but the more that we know ourselves, right? The more that we can have grace, compassion for ourselves, for others, and we can grow and change, and we can become powerful in our lives. So I think it's a really good thing.
Even like when people go into fight, if you can remember, oh, they must be really scared on the inside.
Yeah.
It humanizes everyone.
Yeah.
When you learn these.
Yeah. It's a big deal. So
also it helps you, like, you know, those people who are like workaholics and you feel like, God, they're hustling so much and I'm a failure at life.
Yeah.
It helps you remember, like, oh, part of that might be their trauma response.
Yeah. So, hey, if you haven't subscribed on YouTube yet,
come watch us.
Do that.
We're fun. We're cute.
If you haven't, review us on iTunes. We need some more reviews.
Yeah.
I like reviews. Write something in there. Talk
maybe
about
some on YouTube too.
And on YouTube. Yeah. Like, chat it up on YouTube. Do the whole like, here
boop,
I am.
Boop, 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 boop.
Keyboard warrior in a good way.
Yeah. Use your skills for good.
Yeah. Your powers for good. And
powers. That was the right word.
Yeah. What else do I have to say about this as we're going? I'm really done. Here's what I'm going to go do. I'm going to go home. I'm going to go work on my diorama.
Yeah, you are.
And I'm going to relax until we play cards with Rachel and Kyle tonight.
Perfect.
So now everybody knows that. And I got nothing left to say in this.
Goodbye.
Go away.